And I was struggling with those feelings and trying to make some sense of the chaos when I approached the yellow tape and noticed two policemen passing back and forth before the front door. The porch light was on, as were the lights inside the house, and I could see several other officers congregating at a spot just inside the door, and I opened my mouth to question the officer standing on the opposite side of the tape, but before I could summon the words, he spoke first. "Move back," he said. "You can't go in there." And he looked at me with eyes made stern by the seriousness of the moment. "What happened?" I asked. "Move back," he said again. "Please move back." I stepped back into the street, and though it was a warm, humid morning, I felt a chill sweep over me, and I tugged at my robe, and as I did, I saw another officer rush from the house and out toward the street, and when he was near the officer guarding the perimeter, he paused and spoke. "There's gasoline all over the goddamn place," he said. Then I saw him look toward the cars parked along the street. "They here yet?" "Over there," the other officer said. I saw him squint and look. A third officer was struggling to remove a large dog from the rear of his car. "Get that goddamn dog over here," he yelled. I watched him for a moment, then I turned and looked at Luther, and I could see that he had collapsed to the ground, crying. And I could see his body trembling, and I could see his large, powerful hands pounding the ground. And I wanted to go to him, but I knew that I couldn't, and the fact that I couldn't pained me. And I was staring at Luther when I saw the officer gingerly lift him to his feet and escort him away from the house and out toward one of the squad cars parked just beyond the yard. And as they disappeared into the shadows, I was aware of the foul odor again, and the people milling about the streets, and next to me, I heard Brother Jenkins say that Luther had just made it home, and that he had found his wife and son's smoldering bodies huddled together just inside the door, and they had been doused with gasoline, and they were burned beyond recognition, and that it was a goddamn shame for one person to do that to another person, and that when they caught the son of a bitch that did this, they ought to hang him upside down by his baby maker and beat him to death with horsewire. And in the distance, I saw the car with Luther in it pull out into the street, and I heard the officer say that they were headed downtown to take his statement. And as they passed, I saw Luther slumped over in the front seat with his forearms folded against the dashboard and his head lying against his arms. And as I watched the car disappear into the curb, I felt my eyes moisten, and I wondered how Luther was going to go on without his family. And I wondered how Mrs. Miller was going to go on without her child. And on the horizon, I saw the light of the rising sun breaking through the darkness, illuminating the ugliness of this God-forsaken day. And suddenly, I couldn't help but notice the stillness of the morning, or the way the huge branches of the old oak tree in the yard before Luther's house hung perfectly still in the warm, breezeless air, or the spot beneath that tree where, from across the street in the window of my parents' house, I had recently watched him and her lying on a blanket laden with food, laughing and frolicking and making merry like it was Christmas. And I was looking at that spot, remembering them, when I heard the distant sound of my mother's feeble voice calling to me from the depths of her front porch.
Chapter 2. The door to my house was open, and from where I stood, I could see the tiny trail of smoke rising from their badly charred bodies, and I could smell the strong scent of their burning flesh. And the officer they called AJ was standing next to me, and he was asking me questions and writing on his pad, and I could hear the commotion all about me, and my trembling hands were covering my mouth.